Okay, I'm excited to personally sit down with this next guest in our next one-on-one, Eric LeGrand, former Rutgers football player, motivational speaker, sports broadcaster, entrepreneur, philanthropist. In June 2012, Eric was presented the Unsung Hero Award by the New Jersey Hall of Fame. He was awarded the Jimmy V Award for Perseverance at the 20th Annual ESPYs back in 2012. He's the author of a book, Believe, My Faith in the Tackle That Changed My Life. Eric also launched a nonprofit called Team LeGrand, launched in September of 2013 as a fundraising arm for the Christopher and Donna Reeve Foundation to carry forward the legacy of the late Christopher Reeve. Everybody, please join me in welcoming Eric LeGrand.
So Eric, I think one of the first questions that I had as I started to think about this conversation together was, about how you, with all the experiences you've had, especially in the last few years, what have you learned about the challenges of work? Is there anything that you've observed from your seat on how work is changing or how work is evolving?
Well, the biggest thing I would say, especially in the past 5 years, is diversity and inclusion. And being a wheelchair user like myself, a lot of times people ask me, "Hey, how do you work? How do you make a living? What am I going to do after my injury?" And then I started to, after I started putting on different events and meeting more people, they like to use me as an example when I come into their office, and they're like, maybe this door wasn't wide enough. We need to open that wider for our wheelchair users. Or Eric's mind, he may have had a spinal cord injury, but he still could bring a lot to the table. Why not try, reach out and try to educate myself more on somebody else who might be in a wheelchair, has some sort of disability, And that's why I see it's been changed over the past 5 years. Diversity and inclusion programs are really starting to come into the workplace, which is amazing because there's so many people that are dealing with some sort of disability in this world. I know 5.6 million people with some sort of paralysis, but there's just so much more that are out there, but we have so much still to offer.
What do you think about folks out there who maybe say that when they think about inclusion work, think that we're good enough?
I don't think you're ever good enough when it comes to inclusion work, because I realized that after being in a wheelchair, I'm not educated on everyone's certain situation. Oh yeah, we're good enough with the inclusion. Like, we got somebody has a disability, he got one thing, we're good enough now. I just think that's real narrow-minded people that are just not really focusing on a big picture of what else we can explore in this route. How can we better our business? Just because you have somebody with a disability or multiple people with disability doesn't mean that you can't expand your company. They can't bring, certain tactics to their company, certain, strategies that they have in there that they've created to the company that allows you to ultimately up that bottom line a little bit. So when people say, "Oh no, we got enough, we're good," there could always be more. And believe me, there's just so much more to educate yourself on. You just have to be willing to have an open mind.
Right. It's I think maybe in the last few weeks it's really become prominent with the social movement that's taking place around the country. And the one thing that I've kind of realized is that everybody talks about, experience. When you talk about experiences, everybody has a different set of experiences. You have a very unique set of experiences that have formed who you are, your perspectives, and your opinions. What do you say to people? How do you get people when you do a ton of motivational speaking and you do a ton of conversations with business leaders and athletes? What's your goal? What's your perspective in trying to get people to see things from your point of view who haven't had the experiences you've had?
The first thing I try to explain to them how to be genuine. What you see is what you get with me. I don't have like some script right up, like I gotta come here, I'm gonna present it. Sometimes you have to do that, but be yourself. show your personality. And then from there, you have to be able to explain to people, this is these are the things that are happening. These are my experiences. Your experiences may be a little bit different. They may not be the same as mine, but having an open mind and actually listening to you, you can find a way that maybe you can relate this situation that happened in my life to something maybe not as big or may not be as drastic, but something in my life and into your life, I'm sorry, and then be able to push it forward going that way, using different strategies and stories that I tell and different methods and things that I learn when I speak. Usually I go in there and the people, sometimes they look to me like I'm a celebrity and this and that, or sometimes my wheelchair captivates them because of the size of me coming out there. But at the end of that show, I'm like, I'm just like you. I sat in those high school seats before. I listened to different presentations. I've been through college, got to play, college football. Now I'm in the work world. I'm not that much different than you. I had 1 second that changed my life that made things a lot different, but that doesn't mean I don't have some of the same, experiences that you have. And when I share my conversation and a little bit of my background about my life before my injury and then after, people are, oh wow, that's a genuine dude. I can relate to him somehow, some way. They may not have to grow up in the same neighborhood I grew up in, or been able to play at a Division I college football level, but then I make sure I implement stories to my crowd that can relate to them.
Yeah, there's some awesome, it's my shameless plug. Some awesome stories in here. You with your Believe 52 movement. I think it's more of a. I mean, it's fair to say it's like I position it more as a movement than just an organization from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Why'd you start it?
Well, it's funny. I will say a little bragging rights. I just got that copyrighted this week, so I'm excited about that. Believe 52. I got that. That's my brand now. Believe 52. It's all mine. I got a trademark. So, Believe 52 started. So when I was in high school, we used to have a Believe sign above our locker, and we used to always go out and tap that before we went out. And I remember looking up. I always would see the EL, and I would tap it, didn't tell nobody. Just that was my thing. Finally, the summer before I got injured, so the summer of 2010, I was hanging out in my hometown. I was hanging out with some of my friends, and I don't even know how the conversation came up about the locker room, but we all played together at football and stuff. So I told my friend John Nevins, I'm like, I used to always hit the EL and Believe one night. He goes, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I didn't even notice that. I'm like, yeah, that's what I used to do. Fast forward now to October 16, 2010, when my injury happened. I remember my coach just trying to rally around something. And he was just like, we got to believe everything's going to be okay. And then my friend John had shared that story with Coach Shiano, Rutgers coach. And he was like, that's it. We're going to believe that 52 is going to be okay. Believe 52 is in God's hands, and Believe 52 is going to be the movement. And next thing you know, people are putting it on T-shirts and signs, and it just blew up, and it just motivated me too, because I just knew my initials were right in that word believe. And at that time, when you're laying on I felt like on my deathbed. It's the only thing I really could do.
Yeah, it's I think the stories in the book are they're profound, they're wild. I think you can't help but try to put yourself in your shoes, even though the reality is you can't. And it makes me think about all the challenges that we all think we have in a day, and how we tackle them, right? How do we approach them? What have you learned, or you feel you find yourself talking about a lot, about how to tackle adversity, given what you've learned?
People ask me all the time, like, how do you handle your adversity so much, everything that you have to go through, and how do you be able to get up and stay so motivated and driven? And I say, listen, we are all human. I learned at Rutgers, trained behavior becomes instinct. Whatever we think, whatever we do, the process that we have to go through, it becomes your instinct. So if you train your mind to put yourself, okay, I have to go through this, I have to do this, but I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to follow whatever the guidelines are. I'm going to follow whatever the rules are. I'm going to follow whatever knowledge I have on it. I'm going to do it. And then when you get done with it, it feels so much better. I try to tell people, yes, you may not have to go through a 2-hour process with nurses like I go through every single morning. It's something I don't want to do, but it's something I have to do. And I know once I do get set up on my phone, I got to hit the ground running now. I use that time to think, be innovative. As I'm getting, cleaned up and washed up by nurses and everything, I'm just sitting there with my eyes closed, envisioning different things, trying to put things into action as I sit there and have to go through my process. So literally getting washed up and cleaned up by nurses doing this, but in my mind, I'm thinking of business strategies on how I want to execute. And I try to tell people, in order to train yourself to do things like that, you have to do things you don't want to do. And I always use the example. Some people could get up and they don't like to make their bed. They just go on their day. I say, do that 5 days in a row. Get up, make your bed 5 days in a row. Something you don't want to do, but do it and watch. It's going to become your habit. It's going to be just something, all right, I get up, I got to do this. I got to do this. And then on to the next thing. Get up and go for a run. Oh, I hate going for a run. Try for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. It's just something that you do and you start creating all these habits. And then you start to better yourself because now when you have something that comes in life with adversity, you'll have these already trained habits and mentally, okay, I got to do this. Mental toughness is not easy. You have to train mental toughness. You got to do things that are strenuous that you don't like, but it sets you up for when adverse times do come, you're prepared.
Totally. Yeah. The do the hard stuff, kind of lean into the hard stuff, right?
The hard stuff people are always, that's the hardest thing. Everyone wants to, the path of least resistance. The hard things are the ones that put strenuous on and put stress in. People don't want to do them, but then they want to ask you, well, how can you do it? Well, I've been through some hard times and I've seen the hard stuff, but I came out better for it. And now I know how to apply those. When things do get tough, I know how to apply the methods I've done.
What have you, because you mentioned you'd spent some time talking to, all types of audiences, but I'm intrigued to hear your perspective on young people. There's a major today, especially in the workplace, there's always this conversation around, we beat up on the earlier generation, right? First it was like us millennials got beat up on, and now it's Gen Z. I just found out my 3-year-old daughter is Gen Alpha, which I don't understand how.
Like Gen Alpha?
Gen Alpha is the new. My daughter's 3, so she's Gen Alpha now.
Oh Lord, I did not know. I did not know. So my niece is 4, so I'm wondering if she's Gen Alpha. So that's interesting. But yeah, like you said, millennials get beat up on, and then Gen Z and now Gen Alpha. And it's funny because we beat up on millennials and stuff. Yes, technology has developed, things have turned, but I believe it starts in the household. How you raise your kids, the things that you make them do, the things you let them get away with, and sometimes being privileged and letting them just, oh yeah, let him have his phone for the rest of the night. But meanwhile, he didn't do his homework in school. So now, as you keep on doing that, you don't take away the things you don't, set boundaries and you don't put through punishment. Punishment. People always think, oh, beating your kids. No, it's not always beating your kids. No, I'm not saying that. No, you take things away from them. My mom knew I was an outside kid. When I got into middle school, like been outside since I was 3rd grade. When my mom told me I couldn't go outside because I didn't do something like take out the garbage or got in trouble in school, yeah, it's something. It felt like the world was ending to me. So people have to realize, you can't blame, oh, they're so lazy to do this. We're feeding into that culture. It's all about how you raise the kids and what you let them get away with, what you let them do at a young age, because in their mind, if they grow up making excuses and always getting away with what they wanted, then you think they're going to listen to somebody when they get into the real world? They're busting like, I'm not listening to him. I don't have to do this. I was able to get away with this, and that. I truly believe it all starts at home. Respect, discipline, knowing, who people are ahead of, respect the people that are older than you, that are in higher positions than you, but also bringing your knowledge to the table. And then when there's certain times to speak up, of course, to protect yourself, but you also need to realize sometimes your role, and if you don't like your role, then you work your butt off to get into another position.
Yeah, and it's like today, the challenges are so much, like your biggest strength is sometimes your biggest challenge. So much technology, so much opportunity, so much at fingertips, and where do people focus? You made the mention of parents, but I kind of take that And if you take that to managers and leaders who are responsible for coaching and developing people every day, what do you say to I'm always battling with HR directors sometimes, because they'll say things to me like sometimes their budget is looked at as a nice to have, not a need to have for job training, and they sometimes get down. And what do you say to leaders who are responsible for coaching and developing people, but like anybody else, have good days and bad days? How do you persevere through that?
Well, I use that as going back to what I learned as, going with my coach. With football, there was good and bad days, but there was always a tradition and a culture that was set. From day one, everyone has to know and be trained throughout the culture, but it is. And you have to continue to do projects, whether if it's daily or weekly, to keep people living up to those standards. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say you do this for business all the time, but when I was at Rutgers playing football, I made sure I was like on edge because I knew I had to come correct. I had to be doing things right. If I was in a meeting and the coach was up there speaking, he would sit there in the middle of the meeting and be writing on the board, stop exactly what he was doing and ask us a question that he was talking about 15 minutes ago, just to keep our attention, make sure we're not wandering and drifting off when he would speak. Eyes on me. Make sure you're attentive. You're not looking down, playing with yourself. Eyes attentive. Little tactics like that make people realize, okay, when I go into this meeting, I need to be paying attention. I need to be giving my full effort into what's going on, because if I don't, I get called out in front of all my colleagues. Not a fun feeling. Just like getting called out in front of all my teammates. So when we would come into meetings, we had our pen in our hand, our eyes were up, we were attentive, we were listening. And that's just a culture that, let's start to create that around an environment when people start coming into work and stuff. It's not all that lackadaisical, I can get away with this, I can get away with that. You start to weed out the people that don't listen to you, and then you get the right people in your business that are listening, they're attentive, they want to work, they want to build, they want to grow.
And those are difficult conversations or standards to uphold, right? As a leader.
Oh my God, is it difficult? That's why, sometimes our coach used to sometimes get a bad rap. Oh, he's too tough. He's too firm on them and things of that nature. And there's a way to, being tough. And if you're having a tough time with a client or somebody, take that extra 10, 20 minutes and pull that client aside, pull that colleague aside, have a conversation with them one-on-one. Say, hey, listen, these are the standards that we have here. This is what you don't start with the standards. You start with, I see the potential in you. I see you can do this. I see how you can grow. This is what I believe in you. And now this is our standards. This is what I expect you to be at every single day. This is what I expect you to live up to. I'm counting on you. We need you. And you do that, and the colleagues start to be like, you know what? I'm with this guy. He took the time to talk to me one-on-one, not just embarrass me in front of everybody and then left it off as that. Now I'm walking away with a stale, mad face. No, we talked one-on-one as men, as women, and we were able to have a conversation. And now we're on the same page, And if it doesn't work out from there, then sometimes it doesn't work out. But at least you tried. You set the standard. You had the one-on-one conversation. Now we go on from there.
Totally. This has been great, Eric. I have a final question for you, and we're asking everybody that's a part of the event this final question, and it's what is your hope for the future of work? As you look at where we're going and where work is moving, and from your seat as an entrepreneur and someone who connects and inspires so many, what is your hope for the future of work?
I hope take leadership roles, action, but compassionate leadership, actually caring about the employees and not just the bottom number. Yes, you have your goals that you have to reach. Yes, you have so many things that come on you as a leader, but I hope it's more compassionate, having conversations with employees, more diversity and inclusion of all types of races and backgrounds and disabilities. Give people the opportunity to be able to go into a workplace and not just look at them because of the color of their skin or their religion and their background or their type of disability. Give them the opportunity to educate yourself. That's the thing. Leaders think sometimes that they know it all. And they don't, I worked my way to get here, now I don't need to learn nothing else. And you see the times today, the world is evolving every single day. We have to continue to keep up with that education and the people around you. You do that, I believe the workplace will be a much better place and just more acceptable for all people.
Me too. That's great. Eric, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, Sam.